we'd bring a tank and a bulldozer up. We'd cordon a building with a squad of infantry. The tank would suppress it with heavy machine gun and main gun fire, and then we'd push down a corner of that building with a bulldozer and start to drop it. These homes had layers of concrete. The floors were layered with thick concrete and then pillared, so you knocked the pillars down and they'd collapse. And you never want to send a man in if you can put a piece of ordnance in first. This is where we had our artillery positions down there on the right in the blue. They could fire safely into the city. We kept the aircraft out of that artillery fan, and we deconflicted by altitude, 9,000 feet, and we could drop bombs very accurately from that height. In fact, we had 276 airstrikes in the battalion I served in alone. And an airstrike might be 40 rounds of 105 from an AC-130, or it might be a 500-pound guided bomb that would drop a structure. And it was an incredible thing. Those are the holding areas where we kept the aircraft, the helicopters. We also had a tremendous medevac capability. And in the early days, up in the north of the city, every time a helicopter would come in, the enemy would rocket and mortar the landing zone area. So these pilots had a lot of, they were very brave. There was no question when a Marine was hurt, they would come in and pick them up. Next. Basically, what we did afterwards, we continued to chase these people around the surrounds. Keep going, please. And I think we're about, one of the big things we did this time was we were ready to reestablish, services, et cetera. We had a huge humanitarian effort afterwards with relief supplies, rebuilding materials, hundreds of contractors and vehicles. And if you could go again, please. That was the plan to repopulate it. The city after it was thoroughly cleared of all ordnance and et cetera. Next. And we held the first elections there in Iraq, the ones that you heard about back in the early 2005. And Fallujah had, Sergeant Workman's boys were out there to help facilitate that. They had one of the largest turnouts in Iraq. So I think I've spoken more than enough for you to set the stage, and I think the rest of our panel can tell some of their personal stories and field any questions that you might have. Gentlemen, you want to say a few words about some of your personal experiences?
Go ahead. For me, when I got to Iraq, it wasn't when we were going into, it wasn't if, it was when we were going into Fallujah. And like the Colonel spoke about Route Mobile, when you drove down Route Mobile, Fallujah sat there on the side of the road, and you were elevated, like he said. It was a very eerie feeling driving past that city. You could see the houses. You could just tell it was going to be an ugly fight when we went in there. So I think once the word came down that we were actually going into the city, the morale went through the roof. The Marines were ready to go. We don't like to sit around and wait for things. But I just remember thinking to myself, this is it. I mean, at the time, we didn't know Fallujah, I don't think, was going to be as big as it was. I just remember, there was Marines listening to music, and I was just, thinking back on it. It was a really special time, I think, seeing how we were preparing mentally for this. But, the battle kicked off. We went into the city, and I really had to stop and pinch myself a couple of times because I was in awe of what was going on. The bombs falling. It was the best 4th of July show I've ever seen. But the battle, I think November 7th was the day that the battle kicked off. I'm going to talk on my experience. I think they said the battle was officially over, and what we were actually doing was we were tasked to start at the north part of the city, and almost like a squeegee, go back through and pick up the weapons and ammunition that were left behind. During the battle, you didn't have time to stop and clean all that up. We had been doing it for roughly 2 weeks, little pockets of resistance here and there. And then December 22nd, the other section of my platoon went out and they got into a little bit of a scuffle out in the city. And it was just for some, I just had this gut feeling, we rotated day on, day off out there. The next day, December 23rd, was our day to go out. It was I just had this gut feeling that something was going to happen. It was Sector 19. The city was broken into sectors, and
I don't know if you want to go back to that repopulation slide, Peter, the one with all the colors on it. That might help.
Yeah. It was Sector 19. It was in I guess the northeast part of the city. We got the word that we were going to this sector. We got halfway there. The Battalion XO, it was Task Force Bruno, was the name of this clearing operation. He got back on the horn. He said, "Hey, go back to Sector 19 where those Marines were engaged yesterday, and just check it out one more time just to make sure they're out of there." Very well. Just like any day, we pulled up. Marines dismounted. We had the maps out. We were, I'll take this, you take that, and good to go. I took my guys on the right side of the street. My buddy Sergeant Kraft took his squad on the left side of the street. Sergeant Kraft received the Navy Cross for the same, that same day. But I got 2 houses on the right. I was on the top, the second story of the house, and I heard 249 SAW fire open up, which didn't really surprise me because a lot of times we would go into a house and just shoot into the closets and into the beds and couches because these people were hiding under the beds and things. But then I heard the AK open up, and we carried AK. We had AKs with us that day, and they just start going back and forth, and I could tell it wasn't Marines, doing standard clearing in that house. So I grabbed my guys and I ran across the street. Went inside. I stuck my head inside the house, and I looked up on the staircase, and Sergeant Kraft and Sergeant Guardiola were standing there. And the wall behind them was just being, disintegrated. It was falling apart. They were screaming up the top of the stairs trying to figure out what was going on. I grabbed Marines that were standing around outside, and I said, I didn't know who was in there, how many, but there was Marines in there. I could hear them fighting. So I went into the house, cleared the bottom of the house, the first floor. There was nothing down there. I went up. They call it a stack. We stacked up to go up the stairs. For some reason, I was number 1 in the stack going up the stairs, which I can tell you, I'm not afraid to admit I was scared out of my mind, and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to do it, but nobody else wanted to do it either, and it was just one of those things where I said, you know what, this is what being a leader is all about: getting Marines to follow you when they know they might not come back. So I got up in the front. We went up the stairs. Well, I got kicked in the butt. That means it's my time to go. So I ran up the stairs, and it was almost like out of a cartoon, where the cartoon characters dancing the bullets. I got up there and I turned around and nobody else had come up with me. So I went to the top of the stairs. I fired off a couple rounds, and the stairs went up. And then they turned and went up to the second story of the house. There was in the corner, you were kind of shielded from the gunfire. I'm looking down, I'm saying, you guys get up here. They're saying, no, you come back down. And I lost the war. I had to come back down. Coming down was just as bad as going up. But we got down there, we reorganized. The second time, we all made it up the stairs. We're firing back and forth. I had eyes on 2 of the Marines. They were still alive. They were still fighting. And then a yellow grenade came out. I'd never seen anything like it. An American grenade, when you throw it and it goes off, there's not flames. I mean, that's Hollywood type stuff. But when this thing went off, it like the whole room was on fire. And I just remember it felt like somebody hit me with a ball bat in my right leg. I had time to look back and say grenade. And it went off.